Welcome to This Just In with This Just In as your host, Justin Corr. This is a show where we take a deeper dive into the topics, issues, local issues most important to you, and we talk about those topics with the people who bring them to you and maybe let you get to know them a little better. That person joining us today, a repeat Corr respondent, Aspen Shumpert. Aspen, welcome back.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Round two.
Round two, yeah. First time we talked about traffic and about how it's bad, but relatively not as bad as it could be. Manage those expectations. This time we're going to talk about the legislation and directives on DEI programs coming out of the Idaho State House and the effect those are having on college campuses and other places around the state. First, though, it's a tradition on the show. Aspen.
Yes.
What would your entrance music be or your walk-up music if you were playing baseball?
Okay, I feel like people are not going to love my answer when a lot of people are going to love my answer when I say this, but some people are going to be like, well, maybe I wouldn't choose that. But I am a huge Taylor Swift fan. And we had this discussion in the newsroom yesterday, actually, of someone who kind of thought all of her music sound the same. And I'm like, but there's certain songs that will get you ready. But then I also thought about it a little more, and I was like, maybe the artist Sexy Red, which a lot of people don't know her either.
Believe it or not, Lordy, I'm in my mid-40s. I know Sexy Red because...
Wow, Joe did not. I'm going to call him out the other day in the newsroom. He said he didn't.
Joe should know because she's been involved in pro wrestling a little bit. Yeah.
That's what another coworker said to him. Yes.
Why wouldn't Joe know? He's a huge pro wrestling fan. I'm sorry, he thought he was. So.
And both of those were at the top of my most listened to in 2024.
Oh, nice.
So...
From Spotify? Specific songs from either of them or just sort of anything?
Just top artists. Multiple songs within that, for sure.
Gotcha. But for your entrance music?
Yeah.
Just anything from them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think anything from Sexy Red is...
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying this.
Get that vibe. It's okay. It's okay.
Anything
it's fine.
from her, but Taylor Swift, I feel like those are specific songs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's fine if artists have a lot of songs that sound the same because it's like that's just their sound.
Yeah.
Right? I think it was AC/DC who said famously, this is a quote, where they were like, some people say that we have 10 albums that all sound the same.
That's
and we
what
take
they
that
say about Taylor Swift.
And we take that personally. We have 11 albums that all sound the same. But it's like, but they're huge. They're great worldwide because people love that sound. Yeah. That song. Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel like those are the two artists I just listed are like two completely different vibes also. Yes. So
that's great. We all contain multitudes.
Yeah. Diversity of songs and artists.
So I guess you're rooting for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
I am rooting for the Chiefs, but I'm not a newly Chiefs fan.
Okay. And it's not because Taylor's boyfriend plays for Kansas City.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you follow me on social media, you will see the last, 4 years?
They've been in the Super Bowl 5 out of the last 6 years. Been there. Okay. They haven't won them all.
I would say a fan the last 4.
Dang.
Yeah.
I mean, they are the dynasty.
I know.
If they win it this year, it'll be three-peat. First time ever someone has won 3 Super Bowls in a row. Not 3 NFL championships, but 3 Super Bowls in a row.
I love that for them, but I also, I can say this as a Chiefs fan, I was like, okay, yeah, another Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl. I don't want to say I'm bored, but I was like, okay. I know, that's a hot take.
A lot of fans of other teams would love to have that boredom of being like, ho-hum, back in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Anyways.
So a lot of people, though, now, before we get to news here real quick, a lot of people are seeing now the Chiefs as they saw the Patriots before them. It's like people in that fan base love that team, love that franchise. Everybody else just wants to see them fail.
Yeah.
Do you feel that?
Okay. I don't want to say yes, but at some points I'm kind of like, I wish they would just maybe know what it feels like to not be the underdog, but have to, not that they don't work hard, but
apparently not. Yeah.
You know what I mean? sometimes I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
they are a great team, obviously.
Absolutely.
Going for three-peat. Like,
it's
that's great.
undeniable.
Yeah.
And people blame the refs a lot. It's like, man,
They do.
It takes more than the refs.
Someone said, like, are the refs going to win today? Oh, I mean the Chiefs. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of excuses.
You get it everywhere, though.
That being said, they coddle Patrick Mahomes. No big deal. Okay. Moving on now to maybe a slightly less hot topic. You've been following the efforts to eliminate, really, DEI, so diversity, equity, inclusion, in specifically higher education.
Yep.
In the state of Idaho. Seems like some of the latest efforts started really late last year when the Idaho State Board of Ed passed a resolution, not a law, not a bill, but a resolution that said DEI centers could not be on public Idaho universities. So we sort of start with the framework, the groundwork. What are DEI centers?
And that's hard to give them a definition. I think even lawmakers struggle to do that. But I think the most fair way to describe it is they are programs, resources, offices that any student can go to. They're open to all. But essentially, they try to bring those students up to kind of this level playing field, so to say. So maybe if it's a first-generation student, there's going to be certain resources to help with that, and kind of get everyone to where students are equal and kind of having equal opportunities on our higher education public universities.
Gotcha. Just to be clear, DEI can include inclusion like of all people, colors, genders, sexual orientation. It can also include people with disabilities, veterans as well. If you're an average white dude and you're a veteran, like that sort of includes you, DEI hiring specifically. And you talk about sort of getting everyone up to a certain level. Do you think that some of the reaction and criticism to DEI overall is just the rejection of the idea that people are not all on the same level?
I think that's a great question we should ask. You know, is the reason, because I feel like we don't really know to the extent why the DEI services and offices needed to go away. Right. Is that because the State Board of Education feels like we've reached a point where everyone is equal? You know, the Women's Center at the University of Idaho was created over 50 years ago now to help have women in a higher graduation rate. At that time, it wasn't a lot of women getting to graduation. And so that's a little insight of, like, you know, why certain centers are created.
Understood. And those graduation rates, as you said, have come up. I believe that women have a higher graduation rate out of college than men now.
And I think it's maybe looking at that and seeing what the people in power think. And then you know, go to the flip side of it of there is a large body of students in Idaho who are losing certain type of support that they've had for years. I know the board and lawmakers want to create this more kind of umbrella around everyone instead of certain offices and pockets. They want everyone to go to one place instead of having multiple. And even though these offices were open to all already, I think everyone kind of interprets it different, and so it's hard to really nail that answer.
I think that's sort of at the heart of the, I don't want to call it controversy, but the discussion, the debate on this, because you're right that some of the critics of this, it's like, well, inclusion is sort of allowing everyone, you know, into these centers and access to these resources, but you're saying, well, everyone already had access to that. But before we get too much into the weeds on this, let's further lay the groundwork. You got reaction from people right after this resolution passed from the state board. Some called it heartbreaking. Let's go ahead and take a look at that right now.
I can't think. I don't understand the good reason to remove those things. They're no kind of a threat. They're only a resource.
Wednesday, the Idaho State Board of Education passed a DEI ideology resolution that says DEI centers cannot be on public Idaho universities. Boise State and Idaho State University already closed the doors on their DEI centers prior to the resolution passing. The University of Idaho says they will close the doors to their 6 different DEI offices before spring semester.
My heart breaks.
Mario Piles is the director of the Black and African American Cultural Center at U of I. He says the center was set to celebrate 3 years in January.
We were just at the very beginning of making some wonderful inroads of building this community here, and to see it go away does break my heart. And yeah, I may not be crying right now, but internally I'm devastated.
Why is it important that universities have resources like the centers we saw in the Equity and Diversity Unit?
It's a question that I wish everyone would ask themselves. Students who do stay face all kinds of psychological harm, from levels of microaggressions to just blatant racism, and have no outlet and have no one who can connect with them and help them navigate those spaces. And that takes a toll on a person's heart, mind, and soul. And if the university doesn't provide real, tangible spaces for that, and people and human people, I see mass exoduses across the United States.
Francisco Salinas was the director of the Multicultural Affairs Office at U of I in the early 2000s. He, too, is disappointed with the changes.
Intentional work to diversify higher education in the academy is part of the work of overcoming the legacy of racism that's built into the systems in higher education. What you're basically doing is denying that that kind of reality exists at all.
The resolution intends to create student support spaces for all students and alludes that DEI centers are divisive. Francisco says that's incorrect.
It's really frustrating to hear those characterizations from what seems to me to be folks who have not spent any time in those spaces or with those students.
For Mike Santz, who's held multiple former positions with the U of I, he says he's concerned for students' well-being.
When you say you don't get a women's center, or you don't get a Black and African student center, you've done the damage by telling them they don't belong. Depression is a major problem. Anxiety is a major problem for students who are coming from these backgrounds to these new environments.
Mario, Francisco, and Mike all say the damage is already done.
These spaces and these resources for students is the acknowledgement that the isms of life are real and that they require resources and strategies.
I don't think presidents across the United States, across Idaho, want ill intent to students who don't look like them. I don't believe that. I do believe that people generally want to see the best for all students. We just disagree on what that looks like within the details.
Interesting piece there, very interesting. As you talked about in the piece, Boise State, Idaho State Universities decided to close their DEI centers even before the resolution passed. Why was that?
Yeah, we saw those. Well, really, we saw Idaho State and University of Idaho announce that they were going to close them, and that was, if I can recall correctly, maybe end of October, early November.
Yeah, it was in the fall.
It was in
well
the fall.
This,
University of Idaho then took a step back and said, actually, we're going to wait until something is actually passed. We're not going to act too soon. Then Boise State joined in the conversation, and they decided to close their centers, all really around getting ahead of what could come this legislative session and being prepared, not drastically trying to figure out what to do with staff is what they are saying. And since the legislative session has started, we've heard proposed DEI bills. So not a big surprise. And I think, the universities were expecting to see that as well, all really claiming, trying to get ahead of what could come from the State Board of Education, but also in the Capitol.
You also said that the resolution wants to create student support spaces for all students, not just students in those marginalized groups. you said those centers were actually already for all students.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen more of that happening, or is this so far just been closing down these centers?
Yeah, mostly closing down the DEI centers that were there. We know they are opening new centers that are more focused around that idea of everyone going to one place to get that support. We haven't had much of an update if those are up and running since the semester or quarter had started at the beginning of this month. I know some offices, some DEI offices were working through closures and having celebrations. I know the University of Idaho's Women's Center had a big celebration earlier this month. So not quite sure where the status of these all-inclusive, all-around one kind of stop place are in terms of opening yet. I know that is the plan for all three of the universities that we've been talking about.
Interesting. So it might just be, I mean, a question of branding. If they were already for all students, it's like, well, they could have, I guess, just changed the name of them as well. Sort of the criticism in the resolution about these centers is that they're divisive. They divide students by separating them, intimating that black students, students who are women, et cetera, need extra help to make it through school, sort of diminishing their abilities. Did you talk to anyone over the past few months sort of about that?
Do you mean students?
Students or instructors, professors, anyone like that?
Yeah, I would say both students and the staff who were working in these offices and really kind of saw the changes that were able to happen with these resources. I think I gave an example earlier, first-generation students, and that might look different for someone who's come from a family whose parents went to college, grandparents went to college, versus someone who's doing it for the first time in their family. Those resources do look different. I don't know if it's necessarily they need extra help, but maybe different help.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Because, I was trying to think back. I think I was one of, my dad got like an associate's degree. My mom actually went to more of a finishing school, long story. But I was the first one in my family to get that 4-year degree. And there were probably resources out there for me that I just didn't know about as far as just simple stuff, getting around campus, managing your time.
And those are, exactly examples that you would find in these DEI offices as well, helping navigate some of that, you know, helping navigate what does that look like as a pregnant woman, you know, on a college campus, navigating that. You know, it all looks different.
Yeah, someone being bilingual, something like that. Okay, interesting. And again, we need to go back to this, that it's not diminishing like, okay, these students aren't smart enough.
Right.
They don't belong here. They can't stay here without this help. It's just a matter of, no, they're good enough to be here. It's just sort of the logistics of being a college student.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Have you talked to Mario Piles, maybe other folks like that more recently, now that school has started back up? What changes have they seen on campus with these centers now closed? Yeah,
that's a great question, too, that I think we should circle back with and haven't yet. I know things are in the works. I think we're maybe waiting a little bit, not 3 weeks. School's only been back in session for a few weeks. So I do think, the answers will be we feel changes. It is changed. University of Idaho, for example, 6 different centers were closing, and now you're trying to put that support all in one center. I think that's going to look different. I think it's changed, and the state board did acknowledge that for the students right now, this change is going to be hard because this is what they've known, versus maybe students who come in 5 years from now and are coming into this newer kind of one-shop support system. That will be their normal, and so they might experience it different. But things are in the works to check back in with these schools and what these changes are like. I think it might be a little too early to do that, but that is on our list to do.
Understood. So you continue to do stories about this. Situation continues to evolve. In fact, a legislative work group just recommended a bill to further prohibit DEI in higher education for pretty much nearly everything, admissions, hiring, all that. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I believe that's Representative Tays who introduced that proposed DEI legislation. Essentially, it would do what's already been done by the State Board of Education. You know, it's prohibiting DEI offices. And so I think not much would change on our college campuses, and this is really just to kind of shore this up with our lawmakers. It's really just reiterating what the State Board has already done. I don't think much changes are going to come from this bill if it is going to be passed.
Right, yeah. And, well, unless I'm mistaken, I believe it's already state law that it needs to be taken out of admissions and hiring as far as color, race, creed, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So a similar Florida state law has actually already been struck down, though, by an appellate court, I want to say 11th Circuit, because it restricted freedom of speech. Are there concerns about that happening here, about this being any of these laws or resolutions being challenged in court?
Yeah, I think that's been a topic throughout. We've heard, different lawmakers bring that up. We've heard the staff in the DEI offices that closed brought it up. I think sometimes Idaho can be a state that looks to what other states are doing and might follow similar things. And who knows what's going to happen if it does get passed. But I do think there is some feeling of restriction when it comes to freedom of speech, and that is something people are thinking about.
And I mean, if I know anything about Idaho's state legislature, I don't know if they really care about getting sued.
They'll let it happen. They want to pass it and then let it go to the courts and see what happens.
They can decide that. What's a few million on court bills for Idaho taxpayers? To be clear, though, this latest bill, rather not necessarily a bill, right? Yeah.
Not yet.
This is an idea from a working group, a recommendation, going to go to committee. They may print it or not. Likely they're going to print it because, if you've spent any time down there, know anything about the process in the state legislature, they print pretty much every single bill.
Print it, let it get a hearing, and get the debate. Yeah,
absolutely.
But you're right. This is proposed legislation. So the DEI task force is where it's kind of been proposed and talked about. It will need to go in front of an actual committee, and that committee will vote whether or not it will get a hearing. So that hasn't happened yet. I'm sure it's going to happen soon. We'll wait to see.
Yeah, and we'll see. So this is why it's important to make sure to tune into the 208.
Yeah.
Aspen in general should keep you updated on all this stuff as it moves.
I basically live at the Capitol these days.
Those marble floors must be uncomfortable to sleep on, but wow, good for you. Stop texting me, Joe. He's down there as well right now. And I believe all of the presidents of the public universities down there at the State House.
They are,
today.
This
might come up, Aspen. This might come up.
I don't. I would love to sit down with all of them in one room. Throughout this process, I haven't seen them all in one room. It's been a lot of Zoom meetings and discussions on this. So I would love the opportunity to sit down with them and ask some of these questions that I think are still maybe not clear or unknown, or how this process went, or, kind of their thinking
Get
through
their
that.
take on it.
Yeah.
Maybe ask what they see for the future, because there are things that maybe age out of necessity. You talked about the Women's Center, about that really in many ways was a success, increasing that graduation rate for the University of Idaho. People in other parts of the country have talked about, historically black colleges and universities, and how it's do we need them anymore? But the fact is, back in the day, we did need them because black students were not accepted into traditional universities. So they just made their own. But then pulling the rug out from underneath those, is that the same as what we're doing with the centers?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all part of the debate, all part of the discussion, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of aspects that go into it, for sure. It's not just as easy as maybe saying, these center closed. There is and
it means. Yeah.
there's a lot of correlation maybe to history as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But, you know, maybe their answer is we've achieved what we wanted them to do, and maybe we're entering a new era. Yeah, to move on.
Well, it's going to be a lot of debates on this. Aspen, thank you for covering it for us. I know this is really complicated, has a lot of depth to it. I appreciate you being on this. So that's all the real news. But before we let you go, I'm not old, but I am older than you, Aspen. So for me and all the viewers of my age, what is a pop culture news story that you are obsessed with right now that maybe I should know about?
Okay, I'm going to start by asking if you've ever watched The Bachelor or The Bachelorette.
Yes.
Okay, so the new season started last night.
Okay.
I haven't got a chance to watch the new episode, but I plan to. But a former Bachelor couple, I don't know if you're familiar with them, Matt James. He actually was the first Black Bachelor.
Oh, okay.
And he, maybe 5 seasons ago, but he ended up with a girl named Rachel.
Okay.
And so they've been together for a few years now, dating, not engaged.
Matt and Rachel.
Matt and Rachel,
okay.
yes.
And Rachel won the Bachelor or Bachelorette, or no?
Yes.
You know what? Never mind. I'm just going to let you go.
She did, but then they broke up for a minute because some controversial stuff happened. Then they got back together.
Okay.
And they've strictly been dating. So at the end of the show, you're supposed to get engaged.
Correct.
They
yes.
didn't. I can't remember if they didn't do that, but they split for a second, got back together. Now they've been dating for years, and all of us are probably thinking they're eventually going to get engaged. But last week, Matt dropped this bomb on Instagram, and it's such a weird post that I have to read it.
Please.
But it's a picture. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but
No.
I'll just show it. Okay. It's a picture that Matt posted on Instagram of them two, and the caption says, "Father God, give Rachel and I strength to mend our broken hearts. Give us a peace about this decision to end our relationship that transcends worldly understanding. Shower our friends and family with kindness and love to comfort us." So, I mean, that's a pretty interesting breakup post.
Transcends understanding? Is
Yeah.
it like you just don't like each other anymore?
I don't know, but also...
Does that transcend understanding? People break up all the time.
I know, but then things are swirling around as Rachel was blindsided by this or didn't see it coming,
no.
and then this weird post. I don't know
That would be
the
wild.
truth, but it's an interesting Bachelor Nation pop culture story right now.
If you find out on Instagram that you're breaking up, yikes.
Interesting.
But
yeah.
hey, if that's ever happened to you, or if you have a hot take on Matt and Rachel, please text that to 208-321-5614. Use the hashtag JustIN, or just give us your comments or questions on the show. Kudos to Aspen, doing a great job as always. Aspen, appreciate it. You can catch her on the 208 and throughout the day on KTVB. All of her work on KTVB.com. Really appreciate it. I gotta let you go. You gotta get back down to the State House. See you next time.